Hey guys, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast where you learn how to create a beautiful home and build a creative business. Grab a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot in the house, and let's chat. I'm excited you're here. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you here again this week and to chat about a topic that I think might be a hot spot for a lot of you. We're going to talk about Etsy today. And to Etsy or not to Etsy is the big question. I'm super excited to dive into this topic and just share with you my experience in terms of what I know and give you some pointers and some tips on building a business and how perhaps Etsy fits into that. But first, I want to take a quick moment just to thank our podcast sponsor for this week. We want to thank Social Media Marketing Made Easy. This is a seminar that I am actually keynote speaking at in Virginia Beach. The seminar is on April 21st and 22nd, and it's all geared towards teaching creative entrepreneurs how to market themselves using social media, how to use Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Google search, and tons of other social media content. There's going to be lots of speakers at this event, including my friend, Angela Harrington, who's teaching on Facebook ads. So if you're interested in social media, grab yourself a ticket while they're still available at event.everylittlethingmarket.com. So let's chat about Etsy. And I would like to explain to you guys just the backstory on how I decided to do this podcast. I got an email recently from Carol, and Carol just literally had one question for me. And she said, "Dear Jennifer, why are you so anti-Etsy?" And that was it. That was her entire question. And the thing is, friends, I am not anti-Etsy. I think the better question is, what role should Etsy actually play in like your overall business strategy? I think that's a much more accurate question. I'm not anti-Etsy. I'm anti putting all of your eggs into any one basket, especially if it's Etsy. Okay. So I think there is a time and a place for Etsy. Etsy started out as a great forum, as a great place for people that do anything handmade, people that are crafters and artisans. But Etsy has changed a ton. And I just think it's important to recognize that there isn't a time and there is a place for things like Etsy in your business. However, there's also a lot of drawbacks to going all in on something like Etsy. And I want to talk about those. I just want to talk about some of the drawbacks and some of the things that I don't like about Etsy that I want to make sure to just shed some light on so that when you're figuring out where to sell the things you're making, you are knowledgeable kind of across the board on the different alternatives and the different drawbacks to going all in certain areas. Okay, so let's talk real quick about a couple of the drawbacks of Etsy. Okay, so first of all, Etsy has fees, y'all. Now listen, I know anywhere you sell online is going to have fees, but Etsy has a lot. It has listing fees, it has transaction fees, it has payment processing fees. I was looking at an article from Business Insider back from 2015, which said that in that year, Etsy made over $47 million in fees from people who were listing what they had to sell on Etsy. That's a lot of cash, y'all, $47 million. Okay, so there's a lot of fees that go with Etsy. Number two, Etsy has rules. You know, it's very similar to all of us who are loving social media. And, you know, I'm speaking at a social media event like I just talked about in April. But anytime we're on any form of a social media or any platform that we don't own, we have rules that we have to follow. So if perhaps you make a violation of those rules on Etsy, whether it's intentional or not, that can directly affect your account. That can get things frozen. That can get your Etsy shop shut down. So anytime that you are putting things for sale in a place that you don't own, then you have all of the rules that you have to abide by, right? So violations can be an issue. If you get too many customer complaints on Etsy, that could be something that would freeze or shut down your account. Or if there's an accusation, just even an accusation of a copyright violation, that too can freeze or shut down your Etsy account. So there's a lot of rules that have to be followed when you're on Etsy, similar to the rules we all have, for instance, when we have a Facebook account. And so the problem with that is this. If you accidentally or intentionally break a rule on Etsy and you have built your entire business there, and that's the only place where you're selling your things, and your account gets frozen or your account gets shut down, that is going to be a huge impact on not only your business, but I'm guessing your family as well, especially if this is the only way that you are making income is by having an Etsy account. So I'm not a fan of Etsy for that reason right there. There's rules, and I want you to be able to sell what you're making on a place like your own website so that you're the boss of you and so that you're not having to follow someone else's rules. Okay. Point number 3. Anytime that you are selling things on a site like Etsy and you're putting all of your eggs into that basket, that's a reason for concern, okay? Just like we were talking about before, if you accidentally break rules or something like that. But at one time, one of the biggest sellers on Etsy lost her Etsy account. And imagine just the incredible, what do I want to say? Just how quickly that would bring you to your knees if you put all of your eggs into that basket and that was the only place that you were focusing on. So if you want to have an Etsy account, I always encourage you to also make sure you're selling somewhere else, that you do have your own website so that you have other ways of making an income also. My Creator's Roadmap course reopens on April 30th. And we talk about it a lot in that course, that there are so many different ways of making money online. And so many people stop at just the thing they sell. And they forget that they can also make ad revenue if they have their own website. They forget that they can also do sponsored posts if they have their own website. They forget that they can do things like affiliate links to make an income. So if you're putting all of your eggs into Etsy's basket or anyone else's, it's going to seriously limit your ability to make more money. And, attached to that, let me just say this, is that there are so many things listed for sale on Etsy. This is point number 4. It's crazy competition, guys. Seriously. The latest stats that I looked at said somewhere above 30 million items are for sale right now listed on Etsy. Now listen, who's that great for? That's awesome for Etsy, right? The problem is that when there's that much competition, number 1, how are you going to get anybody to find your things? And number 2, a lot of times you have to price things so low just to be competitive. Now listen, I'm teaching you creatives to do something different. I'm teaching you not to be the lowest price person in your industry, to not have the cheapest things for sale. I want you going for a totally different type of clientele. Okay. So when you have those many things listed for sale on Etsy, it's just so hard to get found. Okay, so maybe Etsy is a great starting place. Like I said before, maybe you do Etsy but I always want you to have your own website. Julie Samako, she's in my coaching groups. Julie owns Southern Charm Wreaths. And Julie is a prime example of somebody that has been successful having both her Etsy site and having her own website. Or Dion Woods, who's from the Turquoise Iris. Dion also lists things for sale on Etsy, but they're not solely dependent on Etsy. They don't have all their eggs in Etsy's basket. Okay. So here's the last thing I want you to consider when you're trying to determine if to stay on Etsy, get on Etsy, leave Etsy, what have you. I want you to think really long and hard about, where are your customers? Are your customers actually on Etsy? Because here's what I know. Let's say that I wanted to buy a cute little bedazzled trucker's hat, okay, which would totally be something I would be obsessed with and that I would totally wear, all right? If I'm looking for a bedazzled trucker's hat, let me tell you where I'm going to go first. Probably Pinterest. And I'm going to search for trucker's hats with rhinestones or something. I'd probably also look on Instagram. I'd probably be perusing through Facebook and hope that at some point, since I'd searched for something just on Google, that I would perhaps see a Facebook ad, a sponsored ad of some spot. But I would not even think, friends, to go to Etsy. It wouldn't even occur to me to go to Etsy and look. And I say that with all the love in my heart. Listen, I am not anti-Etsy, but I do want some of you who think that this is your only option to understand that there are so many other ways of doing it as well. Like I said, still feel free to have an Etsy account, but you need to have something else also. And you need to figure out where your clients are at and meet them there. If you are certain that they're on Etsy, well, then by all means, that's probably where you need to have an account. But I'm guessing for a lot of people, they open up their Etsy account because it's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit. It's like what makes sense. They're a crafter, they're a DIYer, they're a maker. And so it just kind of makes sense. Like it's logical. I think I'll just start an Etsy account. And that may be great early on, but don't continue to stay there as an easy way out. Okay. Listen, I understand that setting up your own website is going to cost you dollars. I get it. And most of you are creatives. And so it's money that you're going to not want to spend, but also know that it will pay you back in spades if you do it correctly. All right. I don't want you to have to worry about building up your income on Etsy and then suddenly losing it, or there being a change of fees and suddenly they're charging a lot more, or there being a change in rules and suddenly they've changed the way the game is. Okay. Or what about the times when Etsy goes down and you are literally powerless to make any money when that happens? Okay. So if you want to be a serious business owner, then I really want to make sure that you have your own real estate online, and your own real estate in terms of your own website. Your own website is going to be the thing that you'll be able to grow with, you'll be able to scale with. And again, it can be done in conjunction with, you can continue to have your Etsy site, but just remember not to put all of your eggs into Etsy's basket. Okay. So to Carol W., who asked why I'm so anti-Etsy, listen, I am not anti-Etsy. I am anti putting all of your eggs into anyone's basket. There is no better place on the internet to put all of your focus than to building your own business on your own website with your own rules, with your own content, with your own design, with your own everything, so that you have full control over what happens in your business. Okay. So listen, if you're not someone who has an Etsy site or has even considered it, but maybe you know that your sister-in-law does or your best friend does, would you go ahead and share this podcast with them? It would be greatly appreciated just to get this in the hands of the people that I think really need to listen to it, who maybe don't realize that they have other options or who aren't currently happy with where they're selling things, but aren't really sure where to go from there. So if you would share this podcast, that would be amazing. And I want to thank those of you who have taken time to go over to iTunes and to leave us a review on the podcast. I know we got a great review that I just want to highlight this week from Decor Junkie, who said, Jennifer definitely knows how to direct people who are wanting to succeed in their creative business, and she knows her stuff. Thanks for always coming through, Jennifer. And I just wanted to say, Decor Junkie, every time someone like you gives us a review and gives us those 5 stars, it just helps. It helps the whole podcast. It helps it to get seen more. It helps it in getting more sponsors. And so I just want to really thank you for that. And I do want to take just another second to thank our podcast sponsor again today. If you're interested in social media, you're needing some help on how to make social media easier for your business and how to use it to grow your business, then check out the Social Media Marketing Made Easy seminar. It is in Virginia Beach on April 21st and 22nd. I'll be the keynote speaker at that event, and you can still get your tickets at event.everylittlethingmarket.com. Thank you guys so much for being here. And until next week, stay creative. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm honored that you took the time to be here. If you could, we'd love it if you could run over to iTunes and leave us a review. And then make sure you find me on Facebook, where all the fun is happening. Don't forget that we have show notes over at jenniferallwood.com. And until next time, I want you to stay creative. Bye-bye.